All right, well, tonight's adventure is brings us to Theodore Roosevelt Lake, which is not that far from Phoenix. Probably I got here in a really casual night of driving. I ended up with these banjo players that told me they jumped between trains and that's how they met each other. And well, tonight we're working on what to do when your AI basically stumbles. We're finishing up a prompt right now, but just to detail kind of what happened in this situation. This was an instance where I wanted to create a new database user, and then I wanted to connect as that user, and I wanted to set my configuration or environment variable file to kind of equivalently be that particular necessary configuration. But let me go ahead and pause this and just finish up this prompt, and then we'll continue. So while the prompt is just finishing, we'll just show what it looks like in here. So on Discord, I go by I am the stable dev. And that's because I'm a very stable individual. And here I'm kind of showing, it's probably better if I make it smaller. All right, so now it's not skipping lines, but basically I directed the LLM, please create, I wanted to see a new database user, and I wanted to make sure that it updated the configuration files with that database user. And it just tripped over itself. It tried to read different code blocks. It was trying to run, native MySQL connectors. It got really confused because in my mono repository, the issue kind of tends to come with this idea of configuration. So if I was to run micro get config key MySQL, now notice how we're in the MySQL infra folder, okay? And out of this is kind of the dump of all of the configs. So where? So you can see the username is not necessarily, I mean, this also feels kind of wrong. But the username is not necessarily what sits inside this package's config file. So again, we ran this micro get config, and we asked to get the key MySQL. And so each one of these packages, can specify its own MySQL configuration, and they can override each other. So what exactly is going on here? Especially since we're in this MySQL infra package, is maybe a little bit suspect, like a bug almost. This isn't supposed to be here. Well, so that was an error of me just probably being more foolish than anything. That was just an issue where, for instance, so I had just entered the CLI command wrong. So this is I just updated the command basically, but the way the system works is that, so if we're inside the MySQL package here, and we were to just go into this config file right here, and we were to just set anything like foo bar, right? And so if we did get config MySQL, we'll see foo bar show up. Now, as well, if we were to run instead, and this is where I made an assumption, we were getting all configs before. It was just implicitly, let's get all configs, but we'll make an alias. So we can make command aliases, which is what we're going to do in the system. We can say, no. Yeah. So yeah, now we just created an alias for this command, and so get all config should work. But we should see foo show up right there. And if we go back to our file, so this is now compiling configs across all of our packages in our mono repo. So if we just got rid of the foo bar and then we ran this again, we won't see it. And so basically, this is a nuance of the microhost system. So if I was to go to let's say the crawler, and I was to rerun this again, this time not with that bug, or it was a logic error really. A logic error just means that the way the code ran was intended, but it was a developer error, meaning that it was my bad that I was trying to run that and expect something different. But see how it says the user's the crawler, and that's because we're in the crawler directory. So whatever directory is your current working directory becomes authoritative. And so the LLM was basically stumbling through a lot of this. So it couldn't really create a user. It couldn't figure out this nuance of mono repository configs. Didn't really seem to matter if I threw like documentation at it. It was not obvious how to go about instructing the LLM to do what I wanted it to do. Because in my head, I've been through this pattern a number of times. And obviously the practice when you get to these stumbling blocks is to think, it becomes a practice of how do I structure what the LLM is seeing so that I can give it better instruction. And my answer to this is a new command called MySQL whoami. And the edict here is that you want to give the LLM as much feedback as it's trying to do a task as possible, because the LLM has this big corpus of your context window that it's trying to source from, and it can rely upon its training model, but it doesn't really know what the best way to navigate it is. So if you give it a test where it knows it's a pass or a fail, or you give it something like this, which tells it system state, you can even see it when you run an LLM. You will see in agent mode, it will try to get information about your system. So it wants information in structured formats, doesn't matter if it's JSON or not, obviously. And this gives that. And of course, now I'm going to rotate all my passwords and so forth. But, this is all we want. And this provides the LLM the ability to now know, like, hey, it's not the correct user that's being connected with. That's why I'm having trouble. It could say, hey, I tried to connect, but the user password combination didn't work. Hey, the grants aren't correct. So like I'm trying to access the table. I'm logged in successfully. So you can avoid all of those rabbit holes that the LLM goes down with a tool like this. And so the bigger point is that you constantly want to be in pursuit of finding where the LLM struggles. And then you're going to come up with tools like this that help it go quicker. And until probably tomorrow, I'm doing this every day. So, or until next time.